Exorcist the Believer from David Gordon Green is out. It's time to talk about it. So before I get into The Believer, I want to talk about what I think about the Exorcist franchise as a whole and the original Exorcist specifically. So I am 38 years old. I was born in 1985. So I'm about 12 years removed, after the release of The Exorcist, the original one. By the time I saw it, I was 21. So I'd seen a lot of horror movies since, before I saw The Exorcist. When I watched it, I didn't have the same reverence for it that a lot of people that may have been in, seen it in the theater or seen it in a much more recent timing than I did. I saw it after seeing a bunch of horror movies. It was already dated by the time I watched it. I did not have the same affinity. Now, having said that, every time I watch that movie, it gets better. It gets more real feeling. It gets more creepy. It gets more uncomfortable. The movie gets better as I watch it. To this day now, it's one of the best horror movies ever. I look at The Exorcist as, the thing to compare for me, I would say Hereditary is the closest thing to what The Exorcist was back then. Now, I will talk about The Believer, and talk about why. So The Believer failed. It failed. And I'll explain why. Now, when the movie started, I liked the explanation of what happened to the mother of the black girl in it. I'm sorry, I forget her name, but again, that's how forgettable the movie was. Anyway, I liked the explanation of what happened, to where it showed just her and her father by themselves for the remainder of the movie. Now, I really liked their relationship. I thought it showed some depth. The acting from the main man was good. The acting from the girl was good. Now you go to the other family of the white girl with the mother and father. And the father reminded me of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I don't know if anyone else ever got that, but every time I saw him, all I could picture was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And anyway, they were pretty forgettable. But still, all the buildup to when the girls went missing was actually intriguing. And I caught myself watching this movie like, what's up with all the bad press it got? Because so far, this is not bad. Then they get found. They go back to the hospital. Now, mind you, I'm not giving you any spoilers. All this stuff is in the trailer. That's one of the issues with the movie. Everything that's of note is in the trailer. So they go to the hospital, and it feels like 2 scenes later, they are full-fledged possessed. One of the amazing things about the original Exorcist that made Reagan's transformation so scary was it was a slow build. It was a slow build. And it allowed you to feel, you saw Reagan as this regular, normal girl that was just, living life, and then you saw it slowly turn in to the demon. There was no slow build with this movie. It was just like, okay, they disappear, they come back, boom, here they are. And it just felt rushed. It felt like they tried to take their time in the beginning, and from the part they go missing, they just rush everything else. And with The Exorcist, the reason why the scares were as scary as they were, because you already so attached to the actual actors and actresses and the story and the plot and everything that was going on. So when the scares came, it added to it, which makes it one of the best horror movies. And arguably, a lot of people say the best horror movie of all time. Of all time. It is not just the scares. And that be a lesson to anybody. Being the best horror movie of all time is not specific to just scares. There's a reason the scares mean something. And The Believer, even when it tried to be scary, it just wasn't. And maybe it's because I wasn't attached to the people leading up to it. I don't know, but it wasn't scary. And if you're going to take on The Exorcist, being scary is one of the main things you have to have. And also being heartfelt Is one of the main things you have to have. And this movie had neither one of them. Now, I want to talk about David Gordon Green because you guys know, huge Halloween fan. And I'm not going to harp on Halloween. I talked about it a lot, but huge Halloween fan. Wasn't a big fan of what he did with the trilogy. When I heard he was directing Exorcist, I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens. But my hope for it was not that high. David Gordon Green, you're not going to see this, but if you do, the off chance you do, my ask to you is just stop with the remakes of things and make your own horror movie, because you've got the ability to be a good director. I see some potential. I don't really know what type of movie you can direct that will work because I've never seen you. All I see is you taking already established iconic horror movies. It's not like you're remaking Miners Massacre. You took on Halloween and Exorcist, two of arguably the most iconic horror movies in the entire catalog of horror. And the reason why it is so intense for some of the reaction for some of us horror fans is because these were a lot of our childhoods and these were a lot of movies that we held in very high regard. So if you decide to take on The Exorcist, make it like you got to take it all the way. You can't half it. Now, mind you, for those of you guys that don't know, he has two more movies coming out. Exorcist, the second one, I believe, is called The Deceiver. And I'm not sure what the third one is right now. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's been released. But there are three, a trilogy, just like Halloween. Now, my hope is that it goes in the opposite. Halloween 2018 was the best, and it slowly went down. I'm hoping that The Believer is the worst, and it goes up. Because this was pretty bad. And this would be a thing that, for me to see The Deceiver, I would have to hear something first before I go check it out, as I really don't have a desire to see it at this point. What else did I like about it? It felt, the best way to put it, it felt like it was a movie trying to cosplay as The Exorcist. Because not only was it not a good Exorcist movie, it wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a scary exorcism movie. And that was one of my issues in my head, just thinking before I saw the movie, is why it was going to be such a hard task, is because The Exorcist was why it was. Number one, because of the feeling, the emotion you got from the characters, and the slow change of Reagan, and the way that they filmed everything. And it was the most important part was no one had ever seen anything like it before. We had never seen anything like that. So it was groundbreaking. It was very shocking. And that shock and awe is another reason why it gets propped up as high as it does, deservedly so. Now, mind you, from 1973 to 2023, we have seen so many exorcism movies. I mean, just this year, The Pope's Exorcist is way better than Exorcist Believer. And that's just one in this year. There have been so many exorcism movies that have just leaps and bounds made this. So not only did this movie fail at being a good exorcist movie, it failed at being a good exorcism movie in general. And it was not, there was no feeling in it. And it felt, and I hate to say this, and I hate if somebody has this mentality, it really felt like a cash grab off the name of The Exorcist. And I don't want to, I know David Gordon Green is a fan of these things. I know he wants to be a fan and make movies as a fan, but it doesn't translate. It has not translated. I would love to see him do his own original story, whatever it might be. Because I do think as a director and the way he does some of his quick shots and things like that, he can make a very good horror movie. But I want to see him. I want to see what he can do, not what he can do to somebody else's masterpiece. And I just hope that what I said previously works out, and that The Deceiver and the third one just progressively go upwards and get better. Because The Believer, it wasn't it. It really wasn't it. I think for me, his movies have gotten worse and worse. Like The best movie he put out so far was horror related, was Halloween 2018, and every single movie since then just got progressively worse. That's just my personal, and I loved him when he came out with Pineapple Express and did the comedy and such, and I was high on him. If you see my review from 2018 or anything I've talked about the Halloween 2018, very high on him, very high on the movie. But since then, I just can't. It's not working for me. I mean, I don't know if anyone, what anyone else thinks about it, but it was not it. If you were on the fence of checking this movie out, listen, I always say, do not watch or do not see something based on any review. If you have a thought to see it, see it. Would I pay money to see it again, or pay money to see it knowing what I know? I wouldn't pay money to see it. No, I wouldn't. I would wait till it comes on streaming. I would check it out then. For the sheer fact of loving The Exorcist and being attached to The Exorcist, it deserves a watch. But I also feel the closer you feel to the original Exorcist, the more let down you'll be with this movie. Now, if you go with this movie, like maybe you saw The Exorcist once and you were intrigued enough to see this, you might like it. I've seen a lot of good reviews for this one. And had I only watched Exorcist original one time, then I probably would have really liked this. But I've rewatched this and it started to grow on me for how much of a masterpiece it actually is and how amazing the movie actually was. Then to see this, it's pretty disheartening. It's pretty disheartening. So yeah, guys, that's my review. Have you seen it? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments. Whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. I want to hear about it. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.